the apartment they stole, and the inheritance they didn't know about. If you've ever been underestimated because of your age, or had family betray you when you needed them most, stay until the end of this story. And please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Also, comment below and tell me where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all. Now let me tell you about the day my own daughter tried to steal my future. My name is Helen and I'm 68 years old. People look at me and see a fragile old woman with silver hair and reading glasses perched on my nose. They see someone who can be pushed around, dismissed, maybe even pitted. 5 days before I was supposed to move into my late brother Richard's apartment, I discovered that my own daughter Sarah and her husband James saw me exactly that way. What they didn't see was the woman I'd been for 68 years. A woman who had survived poverty, raised a daughter alone after my husband died, built a career from nothing, and learned that sometimes the quietest people are the ones you should fear most. Richard had been more than my brother. He'd been my best friend, my confidant, the only person who truly understood the sacrifices I'd made. When he passed away 3 months ago from a sudden heart attack, I felt like half of my soul had been ripped away. We'd grown up sharing everything, dreams, fears, our last pieces of bread during the hard times. He never married, never had children, poured all his love into his work as an architect and into our relationship. His apartment in the city, a beautiful 2-bedroom place he designed himself with tall windows overlooking the park, was his pride and joy. In his will, he left it to me. Helen deserves a place of beauty, he'd written. She spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. Now it's her turn. I was living in a small 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town, the same place I'd moved to after my husband died 30 years ago. It was fine, it was functional, but it wasn't home. Richard's apartment represented more than just a change of address. It represented freedom, a fresh start, being closer to my old friends, having space to finally pursue my watercolor painting seriously. I've been counting down the days like a child before Christmas. Then, 5 days before moving day, my phone rang. James's voice came through, casual and cold. "Hey Helen. Change of plans. Don't bother coming to the apartment. We're already here. Sarah and I moved in yesterday. It's ours now." I could hear my daughter laughing in the background, that particular laugh she'd had since she was a teenager when she thought she'd gotten away with something clever. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The room spun around me. "What do you mean it's yours?" I managed to whisper. "Look, we talked to a lawyer. Sarah is your only heir, right? So technically, what's yours is eventually hers anyway. We're just accelerating the timeline. The place is way too big for you anyway. You just rattle around in here. We have the twins to think about. They need space." His voice dripped with false reasonableness, as if he were explaining simple mathematics to a child. The twins. My grandsons Marcus and Michael, 7 years old. I loved those boys desperately, had spent countless hours babysitting them, baking cookies with them, reading them stories. And Sarah knew that. She knew the fastest way to my heart was through those children. "James, that apartment is mine. Richard left it to me in his will. You can't just..." "Already done, Helen. We changed the locks. Now I'm really busy unpacking, so I've got to go. Maybe come visit sometime, yeah? We'll have you over for dinner." The line went dead. I sat there in my small living room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. Tears started to fall, hot and angry and heartbroken all at once. This was my daughter. My baby girl. The child I'd raised alone, worked 2 jobs to put through college, sacrificed everything for. And she just stolen from me. Not just an apartment, but my brother's last gift, my future, my dreams. But as I sat there crying, something shifted inside me. I remembered my mother's voice from years ago. "Helen, people will always underestimate a quiet woman. Let them. And then show them exactly who you are." I wiped my tears, made myself a cup of tea, and started to think. Because Sarah and James had made one critical mistake. They assumed I was helpless. They didn't know what I knew. You see, Richard hadn't just left me his apartment. He'd left me everything. And everything was substantial. Richard had been a brilliant architect who designed buildings across 3 continents. He'd invested wisely, lived modestly, and accumulated wealth that would make most people's eyes water. The apartment they'd stolen was worth about $500,000. Impressive. What they didn't know was that Richard's total estate was worth approximately $8 million. And I was the sole beneficiary of all of it. Richard's lawyer, Mr. Chun, had contacted me 2 weeks after Richard's death. He was a sharp man in his 50s who'd been Richard's friend as well as his attorney. Mrs. Helen, he'd said, Richard was very specific about how he wanted his estate handled. He established trusts, investments, property holdings. It's going to take some time to settle everything, but you're going to be very well taken care of. He'd paused then. He also added some interesting provisions. He told me once that he worried about your daughter taking advantage of you. Did he ever mention that? I'd been surprised. No, never directly. Well, he built in some protections. Smart man, your brother. He made it very difficult for anyone to contest the will or manipulate you out of what's rightfully yours. Mr. Chun had smiled. He loved you very much. Now, sitting in my apartment after James's call, I thought about those protections. I thought about Sarah, who'd been distant for the past few years, always busy, always needing something. Money for the twins' private school. Help with their mortgage. Could I watch the boys again this weekend? I'd given and given, never expecting anything back except her love. And this was how she repaid me. I smiled then. Not a happy smile. A smile that would have made my mother proud. I called Mr. Chun. They've taken possession of the apartment, I told him calmly. Changed the locks. Told me it's theirs now. I could hear the sharp intake of breath. That's illegal on multiple levels. We can have them removed within 48 hours. I can call the police right now. No, I interrupted. Not yet. I have a different idea. How long until the rest of Richard's estate is settled? Another week, perhaps 2. Why? Let them stay. Let them think they've won. Don't contact them, don't warn them. Just let me know when everything is finalized. There was a pause. Then Mr. Chun chuckled. Richard said you were tougher than you looked. I'm beginning to understand. I'll call you the moment everything is ready. Those next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Sarah called me once, her voice sugary sweet. Mom, I hope you're not upset about the apartment. It's really for the best. You understand, right? Family has to stick together. The audacity of it took my breath away. She'd stolen from me and was now asking me to bless the theft. Of course, darling, I said softly. Family is everything. I visited the apartment once. They buzzed me in reluctantly. Sarah looked radiant, glowing with victory. James smirked behind her. The twins ran to hug me, and my heart broke a little. They had no idea what their parents had done. Isn't it beautiful, Grandma? Marcus asked, pulling me to the window. We can see the whole park. It is beautiful, sweetheart, I said, stroking his hair. Enjoy it while you can. Sarah shot me a sharp look, but I just smiled blandly. James gave me a tour, pointing out all the changes they were planning to make. We're going to knock down this wall, really open up the space. Modern, you know? Richard's taste was a bit old-fashioned. Each word was designed to hurt, to remind me that this was theirs now, not mine. I nodded and smiled and said nothing. When I left, James practically shut the door in my face. I heard their laughter from inside, celebratory and cruel. I stood in the hallway for a moment, looking at the door of my brother's apartment, my apartment, and felt a cold calm settle over me. Soon, Mr. Chun called me on a Tuesday morning, exactly 16 days after James's phone call. Everything is finalized. The estate is settled. You're now a very wealthy woman, Helen. All of Richard's assets have been transferred to you, including 3 other properties, his investment portfolio, and his savings. I've prepared all the documentation. And the apartment? Still legally yours. They're squatters. We can have them removed today. Good. Schedule it for this Friday. 3 o'clock. And Mr. Chun? I want to be there. Of course. I'll arrange everything. That Friday I dressed carefully. A nice blouse, my best slacks, my mother's pearl earrings. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not a weak-old woman, but a survivor. A fighter. Someone who'd been pushed too far. I arrived at the apartment building at exactly 3 o'clock. Mr. Chun was there with 2 police officers and a locksmith. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady as we rode the elevator up. James answered the door, confused. Helen, what's going on? Who are these people? These people, I said calmly, are here to remove you from my property. You have been illegally occupying this apartment. You have 30 minutes to gather some essentials. The rest of your belongings will be inventoried and made available for pickup at a later time." His face went purple. "You can't do this. This is our home." "Sarah." Sarah came running, the twins behind her. When she saw the police officers, the color drained from her face. "Mom, what have you done?" "What have I done?" I asked softly. "I'm reclaiming what was legally mine to begin with. What you stole from me." "The question, Sarah, is what have you done? We're family." She shrieked. "You can't throw out your own daughter. Your grandchildren. What kind of monster are you?" The twins started to cry, confused and frightened. That was the hardest part, seeing their tears. But I steeled myself. This wasn't about hurting them. This was about teaching their parents that actions have consequences. "The kind of monster," I said, "who was raised by a woman who stole food so her children could eat. Who worked herself to the bone to give her daughter every opportunity. Who gave and gave and gave and asked for nothing but love in return. The kind of monster who discovered that her daughter valued an apartment more than her own mother." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, sir, we need you to comply. This is a legal eviction. You can contest it in court, but for now you need to leave." The next 30 minutes were chaos. Sarah screamed. James threatened to sue. The twins clung to their mother, crying. And through it all, I stood there, heartbreaking but resolve unshaken. Mr. Chan handled everything with professional efficiency. The locks were changed. James and Sarah were escorted out with 2 suitcases of hastily packed clothes and necessities. The door closed behind them, and then it was quiet. I stood in Richard's apartment, my apartment, and looked around. The space they'd begun to desecrate. The walls they planned to tear down. I could feel Richard's presence here, and I could almost hear him saying, "About time, sis." But the story didn't end there. That was just the beginning. The following Monday, I made an appointment with a different lawyer. A woman named Patricia who specialized in family law. I told her everything: the theft, the eviction, and what I wanted to do next. "I want to establish a trust fund for my grandsons," I said. "Something Sarah and James cannot touch, cannot access, cannot manipulate. The money will be available for Marcus and Michael's education, healthcare, and living expenses when they turn 18. Until then, it's protected." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Smart. What else?" "I'm going to buy a small house. Nothing fancy but nice. 3 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, good schools. And I'm going to offer it to Sarah and James rent-free for the next 10 years with conditions." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "They have to attend family counseling. All of them, including me. Weekly sessions for at least 6 months, then monthly after that. They have to maintain the property. No subletting, no using it as collateral. And most importantly, they have to acknowledge what they did. A written apology, sincere and detailed. If they break any of these conditions, they're out. You're being more generous than they deserve." "I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for Marcus and Michael. Those boys deserve stability, a home. I won't let my anger at their parents punish them. But Sarah and James need to understand that generosity isn't weakness. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I also did something else. I donated $1 million to a charity that helped elderly people who'd been financially abused by family members. In Richard's name. Felt right, turning our pain into something that could help others. The house I bought was modest but beautiful. A 3-bedroom bungalow with a backyard where the twins could play. I had the deed drawn up with all my conditions clearly stated. Then I called Sarah. Her voice was cold when she answered. "What do you want?" "To talk. In person. Can you and James meet me tomorrow? I'll come to wherever you're staying." They were at James's brother's place, cramped and miserable. When I arrived, the hostility in the room was thick enough to cut. The twins were at school. It was just the 3 of us. I slid the folder across the table. "This is a deed to a house. 3 bedrooms, good neighborhood, near the twins' current school. It's yours rent-free for 10 years. Under the conditions listed in this document." They stared at me, suspicious. James grabbed the folder, read through it. His expression changed from anger to confusion to something like shame. Sarah read over his shoulder, tears starting to fall. "Why?" Sarah whispered. "After what we did, why would you?" "Because I'm your mother," I said simply. "And those are my grandsons. What you did was unforgivable. But you're still my daughter. This isn't forgiveness, not yet. This is me choosing to be better than my hurt. But Sarah James, if you ever betray me like this again, I'm done. No second chances. No more generosity. Are we clear? Sarah broke down completely. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what we were thinking. James said it would be fine, that you'd understand, and I convinced myself it was okay. But it wasn't. It was horrible. Unforgivable. James looked at the floor. I thought you were just a lonely old woman who wouldn't fight back. I was wrong. About everything. Yes, I said coldly. You were. Now you have a choice. Accept these terms, work on repairing our relationship, and build a stable home for your children. Or refuse and figure out your own path. I won't help you again. They took the house. They signed the papers. They started counseling the following week. Those first few months were painful. In therapy, everything came out. Sarah's resentment about her childhood. How she felt I'd been too focused on survival to really see her. James's entitlement. His view that elderly people didn't really need as much as younger families. My own hurt, the betrayal I felt. The grief I was still processing over Richard's death. It was brutal and necessary, and slowly, incrementally, healing began. I moved into Richard's apartment finally. I set up a studio in the second bedroom and started painting seriously for the first time in decades. Watercolors of the park, of memories of my brother's face. I joined a seniors art group. Made new friends. Started living the life Richard had wanted for me. Sarah and I have dinner together once a week now, 6 months later. It's still awkward sometimes, still fragile, but we're rebuilding. The twins come to visit me every Sunday, and we bake cookies and I tell them stories about their great-uncle Richard. They don't know the full story of what happened. Maybe one day they will. But for now, they just know that Grandma loves them, that their parents made a mistake and are working to fix it, and that family is complicated but worth fighting for. James still can't quite look me in the eye, but he's trying. He got a better job. He's been faithful to the counseling. He's not the man I'd want for my daughter, but he's becoming someone I can tolerate, maybe eventually respect. The truth is, revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes the greatest revenge is refusing to let someone else's betrayal destroy you. It's taking what they tried to steal and making something beautiful from it. It's setting boundaries while keeping your heart open. It's being strong enough to be generous without being a doormat. I'm 68 years old. I spent most of my life being underestimated, dismissed, taken for granted. Richard's death and Sarah's betrayal could have broken me. Instead, they revealed who I really am. Not a fragile old woman, but a survivor with steel in her spine and fire in her heart. They didn't know about the $8 million. They didn't know about my strength. They didn't know that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. And by the time they figured it out, I'd already won. Not by crushing them, but by refusing to be crushed. By choosing my own path. By honoring my brother's gift. Not just the money, but the belief that I deserved beauty, deserved happiness, deserved respect. Richard was right. It was my turn. So that's my story. The apartment they stole, and the inheritance they never saw coming. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really does help. And subscribe for more real-life stories like this one. Tell me in the comments. Where are you listening from? And have you ever been underestimated by someone, only to prove them wrong? I'd love to hear your stories. Remember, you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for, especially yourself. Until next time, this is Helen, reminding you that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Never too late to reclaim your power. Never too late to be exactly who you were meant to be.